Hello, I'm Sue McMahon and I'm cookery editor of Woman's Weekly magazine, and I'm going to show you how to make a rich fruit cake. The ingredients that you need for this are 250 grams of light muscovado sugar, 250 grams of butter, 4 large eggs, 300 grams of plain flour, a tablespoon of ground mixed spice, a 250 gram packet of dried apricots, and the soft apricots, the type that are ready to eat, 2 170 gram packets of dried cranberries, 500 grams of sultanas, and these sultanas I have picked through them to make sure that there aren't any stalks in there, because quite often these days I find you do get bits of stalk, and if you have those in the cake you end up with a crunchy texture when you're eating the cake. 6 tablespoons of brandy. And then you need a cake tin which has been lined with baking parchment. The quantities that I'm using for this cake are suitable for either an 18cm square cake, so that's a 7-inch square cake, or a 20cm round cake, so that's an 8-inch round cake. So the first step in making the cake is to cream together the butter and the sugar. And I'm going to add the sugar. And then I start it off on a slow speed so it doesn't all fly out of the bowl. Scrape down the sides of the bowl to make sure that it all gets evenly mixed. So when it's ready, you can see that it's gone quite a bit paler in colour. So I'm going to scrape it down the sides of the bowl. And then I need to add the eggs approximately one at a time. I've broken them into a jug just so that I can make sure that there weren't any bad eggs. I don't want to do the eggs straight into that, because if it's a bad egg then I'd waste the whole mixture. So I've done them into a jug first. So I'm going to add 1 egg, and along with each egg I'm going to add a spoonful of flour, because adding the flour is going to help prevent the mixture from curdling. And I need to do the same with each egg, and I always start it off on a slow speed and then work up to a high speed. What I'm going to add to the bowl now is the rest of the flour and a tablespoon of the ground mixed spice. Now this is a basic mixture done. So I'll take as much of it as I can off the beater, and the apricots, I chopped them up, so I'm going to tip those in, and the sultanas, and the dried cranberries. It's better to fold this in by hand rather than mixing it with a food mixer, because sometimes if you were to use a food mixer it would cause the fruit to break down. Okay, so that's my cake mixture, and that's all ready to put into the cake tin. On the Good to Know website we do have a video of how to line a cake tin if you're not sure how to do that stage of it. Okay, so I'm just making the top of it sort of fairly level using the spatula. Take off those last few bits of fruit. The top is fairly level, but what I'd like to do now is to show you a trick on how to get the top of it to be really flat. So I scoop up some water in my hand and press it down over the top of the cake. Any excess water will evaporate during the cooking, but it helps to give a really nice smooth surface so that none of the fruit is poking out through the top. So to cook the cake, what I'm going to do is to get the oven ready. I've put a roasting tin on the shelf underneath where the cake is going to be, and I'm going to fill this with some boiling water so that it doesn't dry out. So the cake goes in the centre of the oven at 150 centigrade, which is gas mark 2, for 3 or 3.5 hours. So to check if a cake is cooked, you can take it out of the oven and press a skewer into it. Now, if the skewer comes out clean with no cake mixture on it, it means it's ready. But a final test that I always do is I listen to the cake, which I know sounds mad, but if you can still hear little bubbling noises, then it means the cake isn't ready and it needs a bit longer. But this one, I can't hear it talking to me, so it's fine. So I'm going to leave it to cool in the tin, because cooling it in the tin will keep the sides of it nice and straight. And then I add the brandy to it, because I find the brandy will soak into a warm cake better than a cold cake. So it takes 6 tablespoons of brandy, and I just spoon it over the top. I know that some people like to pierce holes on the top of the cake, but I find it's not necessary because the brandy will soak in on its own. And I think if you're piercing a cake, then you're encouraging bacteria to grow if the skewer isn't totally clean. So I just spoon it over like this. And then that gets left until it's cool completely.